Hi everyone, it's Erin Scott here. We are going to look at the full moon that we're going to be having in Virgo. It's going to be happening on Monday, March 9th, and I'm recording this on Sunday, the 8th of March in the morning. You can see here it's 10:20 a.m. and we've just had our time change here in the US, and it is International Women's Day today. And it feels really appropriate that I am doing this recording today. I was going to do it yesterday, and it landed on today. It's appropriate for today for whatever reason. I trust it. And what I ended up doing with this reading, with this chart for this full moon in Virgo, is I ended up pulling up the names of a few women that have been or are currently in our paradigm and our lexicon. Powerful women doing work according to their blueprint, according to their nature. So we're going to talk about that. The image that I have up here on my screen is Wangari Maathai, who died in 2011. In fact, right after 9/11. She died a few weeks after 9/11. But she had done really good work in Africa since 1977, when her work really initiated with what's called the Green Belt Movement. She was a Nobel Prize winner. She wrote several books. She had an international following, even though her work was primarily focused in Africa. But this woman was impactful, and indeed today is a day, International Women's Day, is a day not only honoring women who have had, major impact on a grander scale, but all women, and not only women, by the way, males, females, any person, any individual whose feminine, quote unquote, quality sets, honoring your emotional wisdom, honoring your emotional guidance system, honoring your intuitive capacities and natural skill sets, the ability to see holistically, to understand things symbolically, anything that is more associated with the right brain functioning, more creative, more compassionate, more able to interpret symbolic or storied aspects of life. But the right brain, or what we genderize as masculine, feminine aspects of operating in the world, it's been in grave imbalance for hundreds of years, most extremely, and it's become exacerbated. And the repolarization, the rebalancing is occurring. It has been occurring for the last, several years. And I think we probably have passed a tipping point. So things are moving, but it's not without great, kind of profound challenge and woundings that get exacerbated. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, number one, is simply because of the day that I'm doing this recording. And indeed, this March 8th International Women's Day is fully aligned, very appropriately aligned time-wise with this Virgo full moon. And the time that we have this Virgo full moon, everybody, Eastern time, is 1:48 p.m. Eastern time, Monday the 9th of March, okay? So there's so much to talk about, and I think what I'm going to do, because there's so much, I'm going to attempt to bullet point it, because I feel like I could actually talk about this chart for quite a long time. And I don't want this video to go on too long. So I'm going to go at a pace here, and I invite you to take notes if you wish, So a couple of things. One, the sun will be at 1937 Pisces. The moon will be at 1937 Virgo. We're going to look at that symbol. But the thing that we want to make note of is the 19s. You can see sun moon at 19. For those of us on the eastern coast of the US, we also have an ascendant point at 19. In fact, it's at 1937. I'm just noticing this. This sun and moon point here is at 1937. That might be because of the house system that I pulled up. I wonder if that's the case. I don't know, actually. I'm not sure. I mean, I pulled up the exact time, so this would show the ascendant point for the east, for this placement, which is eastern US. It is exact, which is astounding, and it's in Cancer. And it's right near a particular asteroid that we'll talk about in a little bit. But we have 1919. For those on the eastern US, we also have 19 ascendant point. But we also have this Madame Curie asteroid, which I pulled up in honor of Women's Day. But I was called to pull it up because likely it's assigned and aligned and appropriate with this particular full moon cycle. So we have 19 Madame Curie. Or Curie. The name of the asteroid is just Curie. So we have that assignment here. So what is 19? 19 is 1, the individual, and 9, the humanitarian. 1 is your initiation, your impetus. 9 is spiritual lessons, being the wise one, the hermit. And together 1 and 9 is 10, which is an accumulation. It's a binary, 1 and 0. So this is kind of this binary of both and. It's a holistic 10, 1 and 9 equaling 10 is a holistic accumulation. But 19 certainly is the individual as humanitarian, yes? So we have the identity, the sun, as the humanitarian in Pisces. So this is kind of tapping into the existential need, the existential pull, the existential impetus to be some sort of spiritually aligned, humanitarian-focused individual and express that, okay? The moon in Virgo is about doing the work. The moon is about your inner, what matters to you, deep within you. What are you emotionally resonant with, deep within you? The moon at 1937 Virgo is about creating or reinstigating health, wholeness, healing, attending to all the details of what is imbalanced or skewed or toxic. So systems, whether it's the body system or the political system, is called to step up. So what matters inside during this particular full moon, and by the way, it's also a supermoon. So we have this enlarged visual of this inner self, willing to do the work. Virgo is about putting in the work, being in service of having the health and the healing and the details attended to here. So we have this 19 degree, the individual as humanitarian, the individual stepping into their own inner wisdom and acting on that in their work. Does that make sense? In addition to that, we have, again, the ascendant. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's very specific to the Eastern US, but there is a percentage of you that's from the Eastern US time zone that's going to be tapping into this degree point. The ascendant in Cancer at 1937 is in fact also this kind of looking at life through the lens of the mother, looking at life and approaching life through the lens of your compassion, your empathy, your care, you as a nurturative agent. So you're looking at life through the lens of emotional sensitivity. So this 19 is about acknowledge what you're seeing and take action appropriately. This ascendant point is sextiling this moon and it's trining the sun. So there's this aspect to step up into the good work, right? That's what Wangari did. That's what Greta Thunberg, which is Thunberg, it's pronounced Thunberg. That's what she's doing. That's what Rachel Carson did. That's what Madame Curie did. They put the work in. They put in the energy. Now it is part of their natural blueprint. They followed the natural call of their blueprint. So there's no comparison to be made here, but it is to understand that all of us can learn to follow the inner call without interruption or numbness or apathy. And we can take these women as models to step up. That is, in fact, what's calling here, everybody. There's so much to talk about. The other thing that I'll mention to you that I actually talked to my members and my newsletter subscribers about is that you're going to notice it's a little bit hard to see in this chart, but other than the moon and other than the other, asteroids that we're looking at here, we're in what's called a Sarpa process. Over the next few months, it's really 2.5 months left. The moon is the only thing popping out of it, but this Sarpa cycle is all of the major planets locked and naturally positioned between the south node and the north node of the moon. And this particular process over the next 2.5 more months is going to be one of necessary experience. So there's going to be perhaps a compression of topics that we as individuals will need to confront and go with the flow with, navigate, okay? So there might be a quickening or an intensification of this time. There's going to be 2 weeks out of every month, and this is where the moon is now. It's outside of this Sarpa. When the moon moves back into between the signs of Capricorn and Cancer, essentially, right? Between the nodal points. When the moon moves back into this point every 2 weeks for the next couple of months, indeed, we are tightly bound with this Sarpa process that's naturally activated. So with that being said, it's an intensified time frame. And if we're looking at this moon, this particular full moon in Virgo, we're looking at the moon opposing all of these, planetary positions, the main planets, not the asteroids, but our predominant planets, on the other side of the chart. The moon, woman, the feminine, our emotions, what matters to us with regards to the work and the service that we do. This might feel against the world. There might be an aspect of this particular full moon cycle where people feel it's me against the world. I'm the lone warrior. I don't have anybody, or I don't have the people that I need, or so I think I need in order to do the work. So there might be an experience for people over the course of this month ahead. This particular full moon will have a narrative that's playing out over this next 30-day cycle, naturally. And there might be times during this month, everybody, where you might feel hypercritical of yourself, and you might feel alone or isolated in the work that you're doing. You might feel that all the other action and attention and value is being placed in Capricorn, in Aquarius, in Pisces, in Taurus, and over here in Aries as well. But this is where this focused energy is naturally activated for the collective and for us individually. This is where the work is happening. But over here, for this full moon, here's the moon. And this is happening essentially for the next couple of months, because the full moon next month will also be over here. Opposing, or not quite fully opposing. It's not an exact opposition, keep in mind. But the point is that the moon is going to be almost isolated next month as well, and the next month when we go into Taurus. So we not only have this Sarpa, but we have these next 3 months of full moons feeling out of the loop, or not connected, or not supported. That could be what's happening here, that there's a lack of feeling that you are supported in the work that you're doing and the service that you're providing, etc. And it might feel difficult, but it doesn't have to be. It's going to take discernment, and it's going to take you to participate in your own healing during this time frame, naturally. Okay? Now, you're going to notice that the sun, for this particular full moon point on the 9th of March, and the activated energy for the month ahead, it's conjunct Neptune. And what this can do is a couple of things. One, it can activate a more delusional identity. It can activate a more confused identity, meaning that your sense of self and what you're here to express in the world might feel confused. You might feel unclear. And the thing is, we have been going through a collective process over the last couple few years that for a lot of people have felt unclear. And since the old systems of life, and indeed the old system of the human psyche, continues to disintegrate and dissolve and destruct, indeed there isn't necessarily the new foundation established yet, and that's still establishing. So we are very much still in a cycle of really not knowing what's next, because we're needing to create what's next. Now, the beautiful thing with that is that with the sun conjunct Neptune, what also can be activated, if you allow it, if you follow the inner call, is that you can start to reimagine yourself. So now and over the course of the month ahead, each of you can work and can sit in meditation and contemplation, and you can start to re-envision, reimagine your identity, the ideal identity, the identity and the life that you truly seek, that's aligned with your blueprint. Your blueprint gives you your natural desires, your natural alignments, your natural preferences. So for you, each of you listening to my voice, this Neptune conjunct the sun is a natural process over the next month ahead for you to envision yourself. And for a lot of you, to re-envision your ideal self. You're going to notice too that the sun is essentially conjunct Black Moon Lilith as well. And this can create a feeling of not feeling valued. An experience for the identity now and over the month ahead might be, I'm not valued. Existentially, I'm not valued. There might be, for some, anger at God, resentment at spirit, that, there's been work done that you've been working on that may have not been fully, the receipts of which have not been fully activated yet. And so there might have a sense with the sun conjunct Black Moon Lilith, especially with Neptune. This can be, I have to tell you, for a lot of you, this is a dissolving of the self, meaning a lot of you might need a lot of privacy, a lot of space away from people, a lot of isolation. There can be a lot of time at home, in bed, in the bath, on the trail, walking alone, that kind of thing. This is a disappearing of the self. So a lot of sensitivity might be activated for the identity over this month ahead. And with Black Moon Lilith there, it's definitely triggered by or catalyzed by not feeling seen, heard, recognized, or that you're valued. So the interpretation of the identity is I'm not valued, and so I'm going to disappear myself because I'm ultra sensitive. We're talking about a sun in Pisces. So this is a hypersensitive self, right? So that hypersensitive self wants to isolate. Now, keep in mind that the other function of Lilith here means that there's more compassion within the self. There's more humanitarian, number 19, compassion within the identity to help people, demographics of people who are devalued, who are demonized, victimized, etc. Do you understand? So not only are you feeling more sensitive to your own experience of not being valued, but you're going to want to help, perhaps. You're going to want to help others that also are in that same experience set. Okay? Now you're going to notice over here with the moon, I ended up pulling up, believe it or not, there is an asteroid called White House. Okay? So White House was probably a last name that was assigned to an asteroid. And so you'll look over here in the listing and you're going to see the White House as 4036. That's the number. This is White House. And the reason why I pulled it up, of course, is because it relays to the White House that we have here in the US. And much is going on with regards to our particular political system, the government. Everything is very transparent anymore. Corruption, crime, criminality, mob behavior, apathy, corporate criminality. At the core, the financial systems and the systems at the core running not only the US, but really the global system, is very much indicated with the White House. And the interesting thing you'll all notice is that the White House is conjunct the moon. And what I get from this, now everybody's going to experience it differently, but what I get from this is that with the full moon, the super moon, meaning the spotlight of this particular month is on the inner meaning for people. And the inner meaning for people collectively is about health, healing, balance, wholeness, details, getting to work with things that really matter. This can very much indicate to the working people, the moon in Virgo, okay? The interesting thing is, because it's connected to this asteroid, the White House, it does mean that what will matter to a lot of people is attending to, becoming politically active with the issues of the government. So what will matter to people, what will have meaning for people, what will emotionally drive people's actions will be to get to work on behalf of perhaps working people when it comes to the White House, when it comes to the government, the political system. So more and more people might be involved over this next month ahead. I would certainly say throughout 2020, but there's going to be attention to the government, maybe in more detailed ways now. Okay? Now, the other thing that I'm going to make note of here for you is that we also have Venus conjunct Uranus at this time. So Venus conjunct Uranus at the time of this particular full moon, which is highlighting and spotlighting the details and the health of the system. This is kind of interesting because we're looking at this Uranian chaotic movement, some sort of active, emergent movement happening when it comes to a sense of self-value and indeed financial systems or money. So when it comes to one's sense of security and meeting your own basic essential needs, when we're talking about Taurus, and when it comes to your sense of self-value, there's movement happening with those things now. So over the course of this month ahead, there's some sort of activity getting instigated. When we look at what it's squaring Mars at 28 degrees Capricorn. It's also squaring Varuna in Leo. Now with this particular T-square, let me take a sip of my coffee. I want to think about this for a minute. Okay, beauties, what is this saying? Let me feel into this for a minute. One thing that I would say is this. This is quite clear, actually. A confidence. Varuna is like a righteousness. Varuna is this Hindu god, and how I have been interpreting it is kind of an unfettered confidence. And others have talked about it in terms of righteousness, and I actually really resonate with that. So this Varuna point, this asteroid in Leo, and of course, we're looking at the natural zodiac wheel here with this 0 degree Aries point as the start. What we're looking at here with Leo is, of course, fifth house, and this is where Varuna is living for a while, okay? And what we have with Varuna in this Leo fifth house creative, confident leadership sector, it is also the entrepreneur, connected by opposition to this 28-degree Capricorn Saturn, which is about responsibility when it comes to work, progression, career, projects, things that need to be done, okay? So this kind of inner creativity connected to opposition-wise, this kind of friction relationship, but tied. So a desire to creatively express, maybe in an entrepreneurial fashion, is tied to kind of a responsibility to the work, to the career, to the projects. And it's connected here to this kind of Uranian Venus. Venus, of course, also rules aesthetic, beauty, creativity, you know, the beauty of nature. With Uranus conjunct Venus in Taurus, and Venus rules Taurus, it also rules Libra, but with it here in Taurus, earth sign, there can be something, I will say this, there could be something happening, especially because this Uranus is still squaring Pluto at 24 degrees. And you're going to notice that Pluto is exactly opposed this Thunberg asteroid. Exactly, 24 and 24. In fact, what is it? Pluto's at 2427. And the Thunberg is at 2420. I mean, this is the thing. I don't know if I want to talk about this actually. So there was something that came out in the news, okay, recently, this last week. There was something that came out in the news that was heinous, okay, about Greta Thunberg. And this was driven by a Canadian oil company executive. I'm going to repeat that. There was an adult man who runs a massively profitable oil and gas company in Canada that either initiated or approved the distribution of heinous materials with regards to Greta Thunberg. And this is important because there's a certain devolution that we are experiencing with the human psyche, the human mind. It has to do with the gripping of power that they know is being lost. Whether they recognize it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not, it's happening. There is a redistribution of power that is getting activated slowly but surely. The masses are still quite asleep. It's kind of stunning, actually. 2020, there's still massive numbers of people. The majority of people are completely hypnotized by the matrix, completely hypnotized by the story that they're fed. Certainly inclusive of these leaders. There's a adolescent nature to these minds, you know, very childlike. And there's an inability to mature and accept boundary, accept right action for the collective. There's just a rejection of it. And this, the thing with this here is that it could be that this Uranus-Venus is, especially because it has this square to Pluto, there's destructive action coming from a controlling mechanism that is disempowering to woman, Venus, to the feminine, Venus, to issues of love and beauty and nature, Venus and Taurus. And the thing is with Uranus here, there can be disconnected, emotionally detached, apathetic, cruel, especially early degree Early degree Uranus can be cruel and unusual. Yes, it can activate humanitarian causes. That happens too. But you have to understand, Uranus is a complex planet. Aquarius is a complex archetype. It's not all this and it's not all that. It's very paradoxical. And so there's a lot of cruelty here. Inherently with the Uranus narrative, everybody, with the archetype of Uranus, what we're talking about here is a trauma signature that lives wherever it's transiting. Wherever we hold it in the natal chart, there's a trauma signature there. It's an encoded narrative that lives within your psychic signature. So for the collective here, with Uranus, with Venus, you better believe that there's a trauma signature that is activated, that's activating controlling power dynamics from those in charge, banking systems, corporations, and governments, that is directly connected to Thunberg, and it's directly connected to woman, Cancer, the moon, emotionality, intuition, compassion, right brain functioning, long view, the family. You know what I'm saying? So there's activations here, trauma signature, when it comes to Venus. And also with that Uranus Venus, there can be cruel, let's say, decisions made with governments as it relates to financial benefits, or like, for example, the pharmaceutical industry saying that they're going to be charging perhaps even high amounts for coronavirus testing, right? So this is this kind of apathetic use of money, Venus, for power gain, or the attempts to cling to the threads of power that they still have. It is collapsing down within the next 5 years. Pluto will continue its completion through Capricorn in about 2025, 2026. So we have a few more years to go here with this complete destruction mechanism happening. Very soon, we're going to have, Saturn popping into Aquarius. I'll talk about that in another video. So we're going to begin a process here of movement, focused attention into technology, which is going to have its growth edges, but movement forward, So let's see what else we want to talk about. I am going to point out what I pulled up here. So the White House we've already talked about. Greta Thunberg, this Thunberg asteroid at 24 degrees exactly opposed Pluto. What I want to point out is when we're looking at this chart, what we're looking at is Pluto's polar opposite point, the polarity point of Pluto at 24 degrees Cancer. And when we look at Pluto at 24 degrees Cancer, everybody, we're looking at its growth edge. We're looking at the evolutionary point of Pluto, which represents, evolutionary astrologers talk about Pluto in terms of it being the soul. I personally don't necessarily see it that way. I see it as the tightly held emotional narrative that the psyche is holding. It's an experience set that the psyche holds that is potent, because it's a potent experience set that's been had maybe by multiple life streams. So it's a small self ego identification. And when we're looking at the polarity point at 24 degrees Cancer, this is the growth edge. The growth edge of the small self's ego. Here, it's moving away from this Saturnian, Capricornian, externalized, product-oriented, achievement-oriented, wealth accumulation-oriented positioning, okay? And it's moving into a moon Cancer feminine orientation. This is the patriarchy. This is the matriarchy. It's not about eliminating the patriarchy, but it is about moving into a more balanced iteration of the societal experiment here on the planet Earth. This is about moving back into balance. It's very simple. This is not complicated stuff here, right? So this has been imbalanced for millennia. It's time now to move back into natural balance. And so the interesting thing with Pluto's polarity point, it's landing right on top of that Greta Thunberg asteroid. You can't make this stuff up. And it, by the way, I apologize, I should know this, but I'm pretty confident that Pluto is sitting on its nodal point right now. Let me see if I can look it up quickly. Give me just 1 second here. I don't know if I can find the degree points quickly, but if I'm not mistaken, it is, actually I might have another way to look it up. Hold on, everybody. Let's see if I can find this thing. Yeah, what I would say is I'll talk about it in another video. But essentially what we have here is several of these planets, Pluto and Saturn. I don't know about Jupiter, but many planets are now located like on their nodal axis points, their natural planet nodes. And so the thing is, there is a potency to this time. Not only is this Cal Sarpa 3-month process that we're in now, but we also have these kind of major transpersonal planet points on their nodes. So this is potent, right? And again, the Pluto polarity point right on that Greta Thunberg point in Cancer. So this is about connecting back into the earth, into home, into your inner mattering guidance system. What is it that matters to you as a human being, right? As opposed to the systems that have been human created, okay? So it's this is a potent, poignant, relevant process. And the signature of this full moon is significant. So the other woman that I pulled up here is Rachel Carson. You're going to see that the Carson asteroid is at 11 degrees 27 minutes Taurus. Very appropriate. I mean, she was a marine biologist, Rachel Carson was. But she wrote a book called Silent Spring, and this book that she wrote in the early 60s was a force because it created the instigated action, essentially, for the environmental movement that ultimately emerged in the 60s, 70s, that really kind of got everything going and moving. The conversation began about toxins in ecological systems, in the water systems, etc. So very important. Rachel Carson was a key person here. And the interesting thing is, she's located conjunct Venus here in Taurus and, of course, in the natural second house. And this is about self-valuing. It's about valuing our earth, our soil, the land. It's about valuing what we need to survive. And water, of course, is absolutely essential to our survival. So the fact that she lives here at number 11 for this particular full moon cycle, I think is rather extraordinary. She was a model. She was enlightened, and she brought her work forward with her scientific research, but also with her writings. Okay. The other thing that I'll point out is Madame Curie up here, also at number 19. So she was a physicist and a chemist whose work was invaluable when it came to radioactivity, and in fact, she was the one that coined the term. So she was also a multiple Nobel Prize winner here, okay? So what we're talking about with Curie, Madame Curie, and here Carson, Rachel Carson, are two people. Carson was also a Nobel Prize winner, I think. I'm pretty confident. So here Madame Curie, I think, won 2. And we have the humanitarian here with this 19 implicated with this 19 sun-moon opposition, supermoon. There's something big to look at when it comes to being of service with our work and being politically involved, because the politics playing out now and in the coming year are integral to this kind of next chapter of humanity. Okay? I think that's all I'm going to talk about here. I guess one last point. You're going to notice that the asteroid Lilith happens to be at a critical degree as we're looking at this particular narrative for this month ahead, starting with this Virgo full moon. A 29-degree Lilith is a critical degree point, and it's going to show belief systems that people hold, women and men, about devaluing the feminine, devaluing women, devaluing their voice and their value. So, but the belief systems that each of us hold, because we've been indoctrinated into the collective paradigm of idea sets, the globe, the earth, the human psyche, the collective is indoctrinated into this disempowerment of woman, this devaluation of woman. Okay? So there's a critical degree activated here. It's up in the collective psyche. The degree at which the devaluation of woman will be projected in mass media, right? When we're talking about Sagittarius, this is major sharing of information. So there's something here. There's a pressure point here to mature, to wake up to how we each individually hold ideas, beliefs, experiences, resentments, all this kind of stuff as it relates to the disempowerment and the devaluation of the feminine, as it relates to not only women in their embodied form, but feminine quality sets of being human. Okay, everybody? One last thing. So let's go ahead. Let's see if I can find my little document here. We're going to go here. Let's take a look at the point of the moon, because this is the point. This is this 19 to 20 degree Virgo full moon point. This is the narrative that lives there, okay? A caravan of cars headed to the West Coast. The keynote, the need of cooperative effort in reaching any new world of experience. Quite extraordinary, don't you think? Because this is about the new world. It's about moving in the new direction, right? It is difficult to know from the original formulation of the clairvoyance vision. So this, of course, is written by Dane Rudhyar, who took L.C. Wheeler's 1925 channelings and he elaborated upon them, okay? So it is difficult to know from the original formulation of the clairvoyance vision, L.C. Wheeler, the type of caravan of cars that was visualized. What seems to be clearly implied is a process in which a group of persons are journeying together, thus linking their consciousnesses and energies, the car symbol, in order to safely reach the goal of destiny. Here there is no longer any sense of competition, but an ordered and structured endeavor. At this last stage of the fivefold sequence, the past is entirely left behind. Humans cooperate in the great adventure in consciousness, in a totalization of purpose and effort. The fact is that this 19-degree Virgo point is in fact about working as an individual, as a humanitarian, but cooperatively for the good. And we know that because we're talking about the sun over here seeking the ideal spiritual reality for this planet-based life. It's very powerful, very potent, this. Cooperative effort in reaching any new world of experience. The growth edge of this power point, the dissolving Capricornian, Saturnian power narratives, ways of exerting power, is in fact this 24-degree point in Cancer. That's the natural growth, connecting to Earth, connecting to the emotional internal narrative within you that knows the ethical right action choices within you, within each of us. When it's not interrupted by wound and delusion and distraction, you know because you connect. So this is about inner connection versus outer achievement based on some human-made system. So it's a powerful time. I send you much love and support. I really encourage those of you interested in understanding your natural blueprint. Who are you? What is your aligned work in this world? And what is your process for 2020 and 2021? There's a new paradigm of your life beginning, whether you realize it or not. And so for those interested, you can see my link to my services below this video. And in the meantime, I send you lots of love and encouragement for this month-long journey. Okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.